We are going to get into it today. Adam Coleman joins me. He says DEI promoters have misread the lessons of the past. He says all racism is bad and discrimination is bad and immoral. You can follow Adam at adamcoleman.com and also wrong_speak on X. We'll talk about his books and publications and where you can find more about him. Then we're going to talk to Tommy Carrigan, who has, we've got to get a lot there with Tommy. Let me give you his particulars. You can find him on X_Tommy podcast and also Tommy's podcast and Tommy'sPodcast.com. Tommy's podcast is also on Rumble. Be right back with Adam Coleman after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue. And we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15.
All right, Caleb, I wonder if you could put up Adam's book. We'll bring here in just a second, because I think I want to start with that conversation, because there's a quote from the press release. There we go. The children we left behind. And the press release says, there's a common thread connecting the major social issues of our time, the normalization of family separation. Nearly a quarter of American children are growing up in separate homes from their parents, especially the fathers, ranking America amongst the worst nation for family breakdown. Welcome the author of that book, Adam Coleman. You can find Adam, as I said, on Twitter, on X rather, wrong_speak. Adam, welcome. Good to see you. Tell me about that. I'm interested in that because I said that not thinking about, I thought it was matter of fact on Laura Ingram's show on Friday. She asked what all the violence was about, and the sort of normalization of violence and aggression and making it a media event, the kids with their cameras and stuff. And I said, well, I mean, either absent fathers or physically abusive fathers are well known to create these things. And it feels like you're making a similar case. If dad kind of represents society to a child, and if dad is not available, abandoning, or abusive, child's not going to like trusting the world at large very well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The most important parent to a child is the same-sex parent. And if we're looking at violence, predominantly it comes from the men. So the boys grow up and they either don't have a model within their home, or they're, like you said, they have a model of a abusive father figure that they repeat. And so this is basically the outcome. And a lot of times that violent outburst is a result of being frustrated. Maybe they're not being seen. Maybe they're looking for attention. maybe something is physically or sexually happening to them. So these are various reasons as to why they start going into a violent path. On top of that, you have external influences. So gang culture, for example, it's a way for young men to feel some sort of camaraderie, to have some sort of direction. There's usually an older male model within that group of young men who instructs the younger boys. So there's usually something that ties to it, starting from their home life. And I always say a happy child isn't conducting themselves in a violent manner. So something is going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is just true of all human beings. We've known that throughout history. This is just how, and what do you think psychologists do? We talk about, do we talk to them about their sporting events, or do we talk to them about their family of origin issues and traumas from the family of origin, the shortcomings? That's what psychological services are. And unfortunately, they've sort of, these days, it's about treating the traumatizing experience, and abandonment, neglect, separated families, broken families. Those are on the scale of adverse childhood experiences, the ACE score. And you get 3 of those or more, and you're in big trouble in terms of your mental health and your behavior. How did you come to this, and how are people receiving your talking about it?
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't get a lot of pushback about it because people know this. They understand this. It's just that it's a massive problem. And to resolve it, it's about looking at ourselves. It's the individual. It's each individual family has to take responsibility for their conduct, and even more so, how they approach family planning. And much of what I've been writing about is talking about parental selfishness, making family about the adults instead of the children. And so the adults get to act like children. They get to act whimsical, sleep with whoever, procreate without a plan, and chase all types of dreams that they want. And the children are expected to respond like adults, just understand adult dynamics, adult relationships, and they just get dragged along because mommy or daddy makes a choice and they have to deal with it.
Yeah, you make me have a flashback on a memory I have of this woman who was a makeup artist for me at one of the television outlets I was working at, and she was lovely, but her marriage wasn't working out, and she was going to get a divorce. And she sat her son down. And she said, mom and dad are going to separate. And the son objected, protested, no, please. And she said, don't you want mommy to be happy? And he said, what about me? Don't you want me to be happy? And that's the last thing that's considered when people rupture families.
That's exactly it. I think we've lost one of the most important aspects of love and when it comes to relationships, and it's the willingness to sacrifice. And that's what we're supposed to do for our children. We're supposed to sacrifice for them. And a lot of these marriages, I'm sure you've dealt with this, where you're listening to their problems and you're like, yes, it's a problem, but you can resolve it. But someone is hell-bent on separating the family. And someone has too much pride. Someone is seeing, maybe they already started looking outside the marriage and they just want to end it so they can start over. But they're thinking about everything else except sacrificing their pride, their ego, their sexual appetite, sacrificing those things for their children. And so what I'm trying to encourage is, before you make a rash decision or a big decision, maybe something that you've thought about for quite some time, have you thought about it from your child's perspective? Because I think as adults, we forget what it's like to be a kid, and your parents are your world. And when you divorce, it's literally like the world splitting in half. And that's a detrimental thing to experience.
That's right. It's again, it's an adverse childhood experience. We pretend it's just, kids are resilient, no big deal. No, it's a very big deal. And we don't do a good job with it. I have to say, though, I'm delighted that you're not getting a lot of pushback, because when I made that comment very, very non-confrontationally on Fox News, I was excoriated. Oh, I'm a single mom, blah, blah, blah. I'm not taking anything away from anybody. It's just we have to really recognize the impact of this. And by the way, there's some evidence that if you can get, particularly those male children, a sustained, stable relationship with another male, coach, teacher, or something outside the home for at least 6 to 10 years, it has to be sustained for a long time, you can accomplish something with that. And kids and young males do kind of seek that a little bit. Unfortunately, that's how they end up in the gangs and things. That's how they end up going the wrong way.
Yes, that's correct. I do think having an outside male role model can be beneficial. And what you explained before, as far as the pushback from single mothers, I think the difference is that I'm a product of a single parent home. I'm the exact child who grew up without his father. And I explain the adverse effects for me, dealing with mental health issues, being admitted into a mental hospital at the age of 8 for suicidal ideation. Like all of these different things, suffering from this. This is a byproduct of a chaotic life stemming from single parenthood. Ending up homeless twice as a child, watching my mother struggle because she's the only one taking care of us and she's a single income earner. And there is no superhero, cheer that you can give my mother. And no one would wish that a woman, especially me, I would never wish for a woman to go through what my mother went through to take care of us.
Yeah, Rob Henderson's book Troubled is about the chaos, and he's made the point several times that the moving and the chaos and the instability, that's probably more impactful than just about anything else. So let's transition over to DEI. You've taken some very, very clear stances on that. Tell me what your position is, how you got into this.
Yeah, I started writing about race, and obviously my first book, Black Victim, Black Victor, talking about race and being more open about it. The reason I started commenting on DEI was because after George Floyd, everyone pretended that wanting a colorblind society was improbable and that there was something wrong with that. And then all of a sudden we must, on a very superficial level, treat each other, give each other benefits, or go after someone simply because of their skin color, which is the opposite lesson we were supposed to learn from the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement was about blanket discrimination. It didn't matter. It wasn't, well, you can't discriminate against the blacks. It was discrimination, period. And so the lesson that I learned as a child, primarily growing up in the late 80s and 90s, was that we were supposed to look at each other as individuals. And that black person might be a good person, might be a bad person. That white person might be good or bad. They're an individual, and they're allowed to express themselves in a particular way, and I can judge them by their character. But with DEI, it makes everything incredibly superficial, and it's also tinged with racism, but in more of a condescending tone towards Black people. So even the white progressives who are championing Black Americans like me, there is a tinge of racism, a bigotry of low expectation that they still place upon me because they have to do it for me because I'm incapable of doing it because of the quote unquote system.
Right. And that has got to feel bad. That can't feel good. And there's the layer of, I guess it started us before COVID. I was starting to hear about colonialism and colonial history, and that was, we should feel guilty and bad and terrible about that. Which, yes, for sure, it was a bad thing. My family was in the Ukraine at the time, under Stalin's thumb. And other, even further back, just peasants, just serfs, slaves, essentially. Serfs are slaves. That's really what they were at the time. Yeah, things were bad. How do we help people reconcile, histories that were just, we would not wish them or recreate them today?
Yeah, I think it's important to look at the progress. I think that's what makes me proud to be an American, is the progress. So even if I was to grant every narrative that they have pre-civil rights era, back into slavery and all of that, even if I was to grant America was this horrible place, let's just say they're 100% true. Well, today it isn't. Today it's a land of progress. And even in my lifetime, I've seen things gradually get more better for someone like myself. And not just on the superficial level, like, we had a Black president and all this other stuff. I'm just saying that when I look at the average person in my life, and I have people in my family who are professionals, lawyers, they work for city governments, they just a wide range, and they live good lives, and they're appreciative, and they're positive people, and they're not angry 24/7, but they're not oblivious that, yes, some racists out there exist. But I'll say that most people live in one area their entire life, and they deal with some sort of people. Maybe in your area it's terrible, but by virtue of having that unstable home, we've lived in 4 states. Well, I've lived in 5 states, actually. in total, 4 states before the age of 18. I've been in rural, urban, and suburban areas. And the amount of racist situations that I've personally dealt with, I can fit on one hand.
Mm. Who is your sort of philosophical guiding light right now? I'm just curious. I see some sort of portrait over your left shoulder. Who do you see that? I don't know who that is necessarily, but tell me who are you sort of, who do you lean on to help understand where we are?
Well, that's Thomas Sowell. That's over my shoulder.
Oh, is that Thomas Sowell? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, now I can see that. Yeah, he's great. Well, that's somebody to lean on right there. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, so that's someone who is admirable. I look at people who are personally in my life. I look at people that I've met since becoming a writer, successful people, like just a wide variety of people. So I don't have one particular person. I take hope from everybody and the positives of different people, the positive attributes of different people, I learn from. My big thing is the human experience is about always learning and learning from different perspectives. I've traveled to multiple countries around the world, made friends in these different places, and I always learn something from them. Whether I agree with it or maybe it takes me time to understand their perspective is a different story. But I think that I try my best to learn from everyone.
Yeah, I have not brought his writing up in a little while, and I think it is time to really put him front and center again, which is Frederick Douglass. He had a way of synthesizing our situation as a country that was just like, boom, I don't know, like there it is. And his words are so powerful, and he dealt with so much. I just think he's somebody we could call upon in the present moment to kind of make sense of things. Are there things that are you worried? Oh, there's Thomas Sowell. Are you worried about right now? Or yeah, he, by the way, Sowell. Let's see if I'm curious if my chat room reacts to Sowell, because he came out against tariffs, and you have to be all in or all out these days apparently. And so nope, nobody's freaking out. That's good. Thomas Sowell is entitled to his opinion, guys. He's a brilliant dude. We've been listening to him for a long time, and should continue to do so, whether he thinks tariffs are a good idea or not. But are there things you're really worried about today? What's kind of, when you're thinking about things, or maybe you're writing another book? I don't know. What is your concern?
Well, politically and socially, I'm actually pretty optimistic. I've seen a cultural shift from when I started writing in 2020. Things seem to be calmer, and which sounds weird because we saw these protests over the weekend. But the rational people are starting to get more of a voice, and the irrational people are very upset about it. But that group of people is smaller.
That about sums things up right there. I think you're kind of right. But keep going. That's funny.
But the thing that I am concerned about, which is why I wrote this book, and it's very timely for this book to come out, is because repeatedly I would write these articles, like, for example, for the New York Post, talking about the Uvalde shooter, where he was having mental issues, but he had a break once he stopped seeing his father due to COVID. And I wanted to talk about these different things. Mass shooter statistics, the vast majority of them come from divorce or single parent homes. Like, this is a common thread. And I just kept seeing it come up over and over. And I would use my story as an example where I'm empathizing. I understand, even though their actions are heinous, I understand their beginning. And so my biggest thing right now is trying to do the best that I can to stem the tide of bad parental decisions, reunification of families. I've been very fortunate to talk to fathers who, yes, they made mistakes, but they're trying to get back into their children's lives, and their children have put walls up. And I'm trying to give them strategies where they can, be accountable for what they did, ask for forgiveness, and be patient with their kids so they can be back in their lives. And that would cause so much healing. And I can't tell you how many kids, all they really need is to know that their parents love them and that their parents are proud of them. And so I think our country, actually throughout the West, we need a lot of healing. So that's the thing that I'm mostly worried about.
I also wonder where the church has been, or if they're being helpful for you in this. Go ahead.
Not as of yet. I made it public last year that I'm a Christian now. I was baptized in Georgia, and I am trying to be closer to the ministry, trying to have more of an influence to talk about this message, because ultimately this is, whether you're secular or not, it is a biblical message. The importance of the family is a godly importance as well. And so, I do list my testimony within the book in the context of, when I was very young, the Bible was in my hand and I understood scripture, but experiencing mental anguish, experiencing homelessness, constantly moving, I thought God abandoned me just like my father. And then it took me decades. I'm 40 years old now, but it took me until last year, I was 39, when I was finally baptized and finally fully reunited with my God. So this is a common thing. I watch a lot of testimonies of coming to Christ. It's very common to see these people start off with their story of family separation, whether it's through divorce or single parenthood, and taking decades to come back to Christ. And they are lost in chasing idolatry and money, sex, drugs, you name it, coping with all different types of traumas, ultimately to finally come back. But they're the lucky ones who actually do come back.
I just thank you for that. I think what you're doing is so important. It's just, you're a very clear voice, and it's just, you clearly have a way of delivering it that people hear it too, which is really as important as anything else. So I appreciate that. I'm just thinking, Susan, I want to get you in on this. Are you there, Susan? Yeah. Adam and
I think I'm here.
Yeah, Adam Carolla and I were talking about,
no.
Susan's done this very deep dive into the 1960s.
Are you taking stuff from my show again?
Well,
before
you,
it airs.
No. I'm telegraphing the show.
Okay.
But
tomorrow we're going to do a show about this.
But I saw you chatting about it here on our chat streams.
Yeah.
And the thing, it's just one of the uncanny things about the moment we're in. And you're young enough, Adam, you should really look at this history. We lived it, which is that we went through the Second World War. We ended up as a country having too much money, and particularly sort of. We watched a movie last night called Mondo Hollywood, and looking at the white men, the conservatives of that era of the 50s, was uncomfortable. It's like, oh yeah, you don't want that. That's like, ugh, it was excessive. And then all of a sudden, in 1965 to 67, a switch went off. It's like I was talking to Adam Carolla about his mom, who I see pictures of her up until 1965 or so, and she's got a tight bun, a beehive hairdo, and she's dressed in the pink, hide. And then the next picture, one day, all of a sudden, one hair goes doing like a cartoon, and everything falls apart, overnight, it just fell apart. And that's what happened to our country in a weird way. And I'm trying. I don't know if you've looked at that history, but by 1968, we were a different place, and young people and us, like me and Susan, we were in the middle of it as adolescents.
We were lucky, though. We had parents, that
were together.
Well, they had shitty childhoods, too. But we were lucky enough to not get abused by not in the same way.
Not in the same way.
I'm listening to this thing about Laurel Canyon, and it's so funny because a lot of the people that end up in Laurel Canyon, one of their parents just died of suicide.
Yeah, and the dad was physically abusive.
Or they were in the military and they probably beat the crap out of them.
And they were moving around because they're in the military and that kind of thing. And they led this...
And they became LSD addicts later.
Right. And they led this change in society that we, as young adolescents, bought into. And I'm going to say, you could take back, there it is. You could dial back what's happened to our families to right about there, and families, African-American families, all families suffered as a result of this unraveling. But I'll just give you sort of closing thoughts, since this is on our mind lately. We lived it. The anthropology of that era is sort of affecting us now.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And actually, it's a good point that you bring up, because this isn't a new thing. It's not like my generation is the first generation to deal with this.
Yeah.
A lot of the relationship dynamics and actually you've seen it on the online world, how negative they talk about men and women as far as dating goes. A lot of that has to do with fear. A lot of that has to do with what they've seen at home. And so when you ask these young people, well, why don't they want to get married? It's because they saw how their parents conducted themselves. Marriage to them is
absolutely. And Adam,
their parents.
I want to interrupt you you just quickly with the thing that I started hearing about 10 years ago, which I don't need to get married. Marriage is just a piece of paper. And I'm like, every contract is just a piece of paper. It's a marriage contract. You know what I mean? And it's the only contract we make with society and God and the community. That's the one. And it's a piece of paper. That's right. Because when we sign our name to a piece of paper, it has meaning. And they've just lost it. But finish your thoughts and we'll kind of wrap up with all this.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It is a piece of paper, but there's meaning behind it, right? You're putting skin in the game. But on top of that, it's an institution so we can raise our families. Because most people, their objective of getting married is to start a family, right? Or at least that's what it used to be. But now we see marriage as some sort of business deal, right? What do I get from it? Does this person have all the attributes? Like everything is a job interview. But even beyond that, there are a lot of young people who are scared to enter marriage, scared to enter long-term relationships because they've watched their parents get burned in some particular way. They've watched someone get abused.
Literally, it's a faithlessness. They've lost faith. Yeah.
Right. They've lost hope in relationships. Yeah. What are you going to say?
I wanted you to finish, but I was thinking also we've lost meaning making. We've lost faith and we've lost the ability to make meaning, and it all starts right there. Or at least it's a core phenomenon.
Is that more male than female?
Not lately. I just read a thing that one of the reasons Adam Carolla and I were talking about this is there's all this stuff online where therapists for young females are like, oh, women are just they're more independent. They're self-seeking for their self-fulfillment in their career. It's like, yeah, good on you. But there's it feels very defensive. If you asked a young male why he's not getting married, he goes, I'm having a good time, I'm not ready yet. But you're hearing all this language as to why it's so great. It feels defensive. And fine, go do what you want to do. But you got to be realistic about the consequences that Adam Coleman is talking about.
Yeah, exactly it. And the last thing I'll just leave off with, I do want people to have hope. I think hope is incredibly important. It's what tethers us to life. And losing hope and having sustainable families, finding a sustainable relationship is something that is incredibly detrimental. And so I'm a prime example of someone who finally did get married, happily married. I can't see myself with anyone else. And yes, it took me a while because I had to improve myself to find someone who was suitable.
Hope and faith,
Amen.
And meaning. Then make meaning of what life is about. I appreciate you, Adam. Thank you for being here. Thank you for writing the books. I look forward to keeping tabs on you and hearing more from you in the very near future.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. You can follow him, wrong_speak. You could also see The Children We Left Behind. Get that book, read it. Coming up, we are going to talk to Tommy Carrigan. He's the host of Tommy's podcast. He is a biologist by training, which I find interesting. He was banned from YouTube after he interviewed Robert Malone. I'm guessing some vaccine stuff came up.
Hey, you got in trouble for that too.
Oh, shocking. We all share that.
Good old
Emily
Malone.
sent it, and it's under Emily, and Emily sent them. And AdamColeman.com, and where you can find Adam, and again, wrong_speak for Adam on X. And then Tommy is Tommy's with an S, YS podcast.com, and _ Tommy's podcast on X. I got a lot to get into with Tommy as well. I hope you'll stick around for this conversation. Let me look really quickly.
Drew,
thank you, Trey's Myths. Yes,
while
go
you're
ahead.
looking at that, I wanted to bring this up because we talked about Thomas Sowell. Remember Clifton Duncan and his campaign on Indiegogo he's making a solo play. He spoke about this last time. He's already raised $145,000 to make this play. like put it on stage. This is Clifton Duncan.
Oh, that's right.
Remember?
The play. That's right. I
He's been
forgot
working
about
on this
that.
for a while. So I hope if anyone's interested in this, go and check that out. It's on Indiegogo. It's Clifton Duncan. He's an amazing actor and he's going to be perfect for this. And he's funding it all himself, I believe.
Oh my God. Clifton is an inspiration. I saw him early in COVID. He spoke out against the behavior of the arts community during COVID and really literally moved down to Georgia, became like a waiter or something. The guy's an exceptional performer and singer. And he said, I don't want to be around people that treat me like that anymore. That's just, this behavior is not okay. And he was right. And now he's able to pursue some passion projects like this. So good for him. And just quickly, I want to look quickly at the chats to see if there's anything. What is the classic movie, Jay Wink? Are you talking about Mondo Hollywood that we got into?
Oh my gosh.
It was just so ridiculous.
It was weird.
Tony, I'm not sure what you mean by the answers.
Kind of show like different people in that era, like what they were doing and how they were. I think it's just sort of a montage of the different characters in Hollywood, right?
But it was sort of glorifying this the mentally ill people that were coming here.
We haven't gotten to
I mean,
yet.
they were being ironic about them, but they were sort of being glorified. And while the Hollywood sort of the products of Hollywood were being demeaned very appropriately. I mean, he was sort of looking at the fact that the only thing Southern California really had were these movie celebrities, and they would just list them one after the other, after the other, after the other. And that was their great export. And these people had nothing really as humans. And then the people that were coming here to pursue that were in even bigger trouble for the most part.
They all dropped out of school and started dropping acid and became musicians.
Well, right. That's your story for tomorrow. That is at noon. Is that correct? Is that right?
11 o'clock to 1 tomorrow, Pacific.
Okay, that's going to be a really interesting show.
I want to also talk to everybody. We have a new time slot here at 2 o'clock Pacific, which is 5 o'clock Eastern. Wonder how you guys like it, or if you prefer the 3 p.m.
Yeah, we were. What about Bob? Oh yeah,
we decided that we were up against our fan.
Friends.
We were doing our show the same time as everybody else.
That's right. And so we moved it back an hour, but you guys have to get used to that and then tell us if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll move back to 3 o'clock. We can easily do that. But 2 is, I think it's a good, better time for everybody.
How are you liking it, Caleb?
I like it because I can actually get the podcast up same day instead of waiting and putting it up a few days later. So people get it right away.
Yeah.
It gives me that extra hour.
That's
So
good.
That's good.
I'm going to ask the podcast people too if they prefer that as well.
All right. Before we go to Tommy, you mentioned something in the prep notes, Caleb, about Tim Dillon's American cast diatribe, his rant. What were you thinking?
That might have been from
through
Emily.
what that was.
That's from
Okay,
Emily.
because that actually isn't the one. That actually isn't
No,
what I retweeted.
That's what I thought. I thought it was
the-
a different one. Yeah.
Yeah, what I retweeted was the Oompa Loompa diatribe. So if you want,
There's so many of them. How can you keep track?
Get him on the show.
Oh my God, I
Let's
love
get
it.
him on the
yes.
show.
Let's do it. I
have his phone number.
I know. He's a friend. So he's busy, but we could do like a half hour on Oompa Loompas with Tim Dillon.
He might like my show too.
I don't know. He might make fun of you. He might.
I got TJ Miller.
Yeah, is that coming up?
He's coming up in a couple weeks.
Oh, great. Well done.
That took some doing.
Okay.
That was like herding cats.
You're not done. He's not here yet.
The show I'm doing tomorrow was postponed twice, so it's we're not that worried about it.
All right, so I do.
First
I
with the
think
White
tomorrow,
House, then I got COVID, and that was just like nobody would come over and be my
to
friend.
say Susan has been doing her homework on this one is an understatement.
I've never prepared for a show for 2 weeks.
I've been exposed to some of the books about these people and about the time of history that they're digging into, and it confirms everything I thought.
Oh, Drew, it only gets worse. Like
Really?
there's more. It's like this book I'm reading. Crazy Times in Laurel Canyon. It's like it's getting worse. Now I'm finally just now getting to John Phillips, who I'm hoping is going to come through in spirit tomorrow.
Well, these were the people we glorified, and that's the part that I've always wondered what was going on that we did that, because these are not people you would want to elevate to any status.
It's a dark place to be. Trust me.
Oh my God!
And I have to take a shower
deified them in some
salt water after every day when I go.
Very odd thing that we did that. All right, let's get to Tommy. We're going to take a little break and be
You're
right
just
back.
Too sweet. You're
Tommy
too
Carrigan.
Sweet.
We'll see.
The Wellness Company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority, and being rationally ready, and who knows what the future will hold for us. Now TWC has a service to cover your family's medical needs, including and especially prevention. For just $100 a month, the One Wellness Elite membership includes 2 free medical-grade nutraceuticals per month, free prescriptions for over 800 of the most common medications, access to concierge telemedicine available at a moment's notice, and a 15% discount on all supplements and the emergency kits. 15% off the emergency kits. That's quite a saving. So if you're spending $100 or more on supplements and meds every month, this plan will already save you money. If you sign up for a year, you'll save $200. And when you use the link, drdrew.com/TWC, you'll get 10% off the first payment to the One Wellness Elite membership. Check out One Wellness at drdrew.com/TWC and get 10% off your first payment. drdrew.com/TWC. It's all there.
Ask Dr. Drew.
I have no idea who Dr. Drew is.
He's been watching a lot of Dr. Drew lately.
Dr. Drew.
Oh, Caleb, those are 3 new ones. I don't know, where did those come from? What were the, if you don't mind me asking before we go to some more of support for our friends? Do you know what those shows were?
The first one was a show called Loser. That was from the
hear
year
about
2000.
these things once in a while, and then some, that's wow.
Oh yeah,
right.
there's a long there's a list. I'm slowly going down the list.
And by the way, let me just reinforce TWC that we don't know what's going to happen to medication prices when all the tariff gets activated. So do buy your kits now. They're at current prices, and I'm delighted to have medication that's available for us. So, all right, good to know there's one thing you can control also in this crazy time, that is being rationally ready, as I said, the medical emergency kits, medical supplies, the Wellness Company, 7 different medical kits for just about every situation, contagion, kids, emergency travel, radiation even. Chances are we'll see a rise in drug prices, as I said, sooner or later, especially on imports. So stock up, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, Tamiflu, budesonide inhaler, just a lot of stuff there. We had COVID about a week ago. And if you order now, the Wellness Company will honor existing prices, even if it means they take the hit. So on top of that, if you go to drdrew.com/TWC, you get an extra 10% off. That is drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off. All right. So this next product is something we are using in our house. We are delighted to share with you. It's the Active Skin Repair product line. Skin on my face has been extremely benefited from this. I can't put any emollients on my face. Can't put cream. I can't put anything. But Susan convinced me to try the hyaluronic acid product. It's a serum, and it's a moisturizing agent. It's been fantastic. I use a lot of retinoic acids and things, so I get a lot of peeling and irritation. I think you have a before and after picture, even. Well, she hasn't had the before and after yet. All right, it's hyaluronic acid, which of course is a substance manufactured by our own body. Oh, there's me with the baby who also has benefited from this. She takes it, they use it. Oh, there she is. You guys are too funny. Again, hyaluronic acid is manufactured by our own bodies. And the Active Skin Repair Spray, which we're holding right there, is something that this baby uses. I'm going to use. I've got some nasal irritation. Yeah, and she uses it all the time with diaper changes and stuff. There's a before and after picture for Caleb's child. This was very quick to heal. Again, this is the hydrochlorous acid, which is a natural stimulant of healing and antibacterial. Pick about both at drdrew.com/skin repair. And they're giving our audience 20% off on all products. drdrew.com/skin repair. We are very fortunate to have them as a sponsor.
Fill your cabinets. It's good stuff for the summer. It's also great for bug bites.
We are just generally so fortunate
burn,
that the people that we support us, we can support.
I don't want to get too hyped on it, but of course, everyone saw how much it helped my baby. That's like a 3-day difference between there and there with no photoshopping. But then I had a paper cut yesterday, and you know how annoying those are. So I just dripped a couple drops of that stuff on there. Gone. I don't feel it. So anything annoying there, even the little stuff, big stuff, it works great.
My granddaughter, when she gets a diaper change, she gets excited because she's so happy.
She really likes it. It's soothing.
I know, it's funny, but but when they use it every time. And also when she started getting baby acne, because like at 2 months,
Oh yeah,
the
that's
babies
used
get
on her face
acne.
too. That's right.
They used it on her face. I was a little nervous, but it cleared it right up, and she has no repercussion. It's crazy. It's
And
good
then
stuff.
we talking about our friends from Genucell today too, or is that something coming
Not
up
yet.
down the line?
That's
Okay.
You know, it's funny.
All right.
This reminds me of like the invention in the 60s of Bactine. Remember?
Yeah, it is.
But it
No,
doesn't
you're right.
sting.
No, you're right. It is, and it's not nearly as irritating. It's I would say more effective. Doesn't have the Bactine has a little Novocaine type in
Yeah.
it. It doesn't have that, but you don't need it.
But this doesn't burn your
all right,
cut.
let's get to Tommy.
Especially Drew. Like
We
everybody
just-
needs
we
to
just
know
love
that
it.
Drew's face looks.
Yeah, I
Drew's
know.
face looks so good. He forgot to take it with us down to the beach,
I
and
know.
his skin just looked terrible that day. He's like,
Yep.
"Oh no, I forgot it." So we have to get some more. Emily, can you order?
I already
for Drew?
asked her. I begged her because I said more product. We
I
need
know.
more. Please,
I
please,
bought
please.
that one online actually
Good.
because I wanted
Well,
you to try it.
It worked. All right, Tommy Carrigan. He's got a lot to talk to us about. I want to give you the particulars again where you can find him. _Tommy's podcast. Tommy'sPodcast.com. Find him on Rumble. Tommy, thank you for sitting by patiently and welcome to the program.
No, you're cool, man. Thanks for having me. The book, who was ever off screen talking, is it Dave McGowan's Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon? Is that the book she's talking about?
Yes,
Yes.
it is. Yes.
I read that a couple months ago. That's a
Very comprehensive.
Have you read that book?
yeah, no, and it's weird because at first you look at the 60s and you go, that was just a crazy time, and then you unwrap that and you realize that was a crazy time preempted largely by intelligence agencies, which just makes it that much crazier.
Well,
Yep.
yeah,
That's what
I
I'm
haven't
gonna
gotten
get
to that part of the book yet, and all I got to, and you can help me with this. What I got to is I've always wondered why we elevated these assholes to deity status. These half-hearted musicians. Well, they're geniuses, and then these people acted out in horrible ways that we have still not come to terms with. They were not good people. They were largely sociopaths. They were drug addicts. They were people that didn't. Were not worthy of the status that they were granted. And I couldn't understand why we did that as a country. And it felt like, I don't know what it felt like it was a sort of, they all had family in the military.
Or in special forces or
Right.
whatever.
But they were acting out against their dad in the
Intelligence.
military. And so I'm wondering, did the intelligence officials get to the kids? And were they then trying to get them to gin up some anti-Vietnam stuff? Or were these foreign operatives that wanted the U.S. to fail in Vietnam that got to these kids and knew that they were sort of disdainful of their dads who were military officials? What do you think?
I mean, just reflexively and based really on nothing other than just kind of gut is, it seems almost like gain of function, but of the 60s. So you have all these kids who they're all bucking their dads, greatest generation, Iwo Jima, all that shit. They all come home after, they're all working in military intelligence agencies or the Rand Corp or Northrop. There's a movie studio, it's called Lookout Mountain, that was run by the federal government. And I think you have that, they probably looked at it. And then you look at LSD, I mean, and if you don't know any better, it's a wildly destabilizing thing. I mean, think about like
Wildly.
2.5 kids, nuclear family, green lawn, white picket fence. And then you have people, growing their hair out, driving around in Volkswagen buses, talking about having
Overnight,
So
Adam,
if you're-
Tommy,
if you're in this-
overnight. They happen very fast.
So if you're in the intelligence community, you're probably looking at this and going, this is some Soviet weapon. And so what you would do is if you can't stem the tide of it, I think what you do is you dump as much gas as you can on it and make it look wild to where people naturally would start to reject it and go, 60s, it all starts out and then it progresses and it gets really dark in like a decade and a half. How else would you get people to reject this thing that you can't control? But rather, it's like, making the kid smoke the whole pack of cigarettes so he never smokes again. It's kind of what it looks like in hindsight.
I want Tommy to come on my show tomorrow and get a psychic reading.
He might need that because use that brain for good, Tommy. That's all I'm saying. But yet we have not really recovered from that. Would be my point. We really, that's what Adam and I were just talking about. It's still things unraveled, and we've not been able to get our shit back together again.
No, I think we eventually will. And it's like what you were saying beforehand. You look back at, like 1950s kind of Mad Men It is in your face, but at the same time, you can't scold the path that gets you to the summit. And I'll just like real quick from my own. When I was in college, I was like super militant, like went to UGA, never partied. All I did was study. All I did was work out. All I did was meditate. Aced the MCAT, got into med school, and was like, okay, that's all well and good. Decided I didn't want to go. A couple months after that, lost my older brother to suicide. And then I just spiraled for like 5 years. And when I'm spiraling, though, it's like a midlife, so it's like an existential crisis of losing someone, but I also had this midlife crisis of like, I just threw away 4 years of at the best party school, got into med school and didn't want to do it. So I kind of combined all the vices that I never partook in. And at the time I thought it's like the trope of like, oh, I'm liberated, I'm happy now. I was miserable though. I put on 70 pounds, was addicted to several drugs, doing a ton of hallucinogens. I started the podcast in 2020 while living above my parents' garage because I had moved home because that's how fucked up my life was. And now I'm back to the militant, work 7 days a week, get up early. And you know what? It's not a bad thing. I took it too far in college and didn't enjoy life, but now it has brought me to.
You also didn't own it. It wasn't yours.
No, exactly.
I don't know what was motivating you then, but you didn't own it the same way. Yeah.
So my point is you can look at it and associate it Pavlovianly. You can go, that's bad. You didn't enjoy life. Versus I look at it now. Well, I do my own podcast for a living. I'm my own boss. I'm sober and I enjoy life. So my point is we can look back at the sort of, Leave It to Beaver and go, man, that was a different time. But you also have to be very honest with yourself and go, are we in a good place now? And when you have kids chopping their genitals off and half the country thinks it's okay, I would argue that it's probably not good. And I'm not saying everything in the 50s should come back. It shouldn't. I also don't think we should throw it all out. Just for my own subjective, as one human being on this planet.
It's interesting. I had a mini version of what you had where I started college all down, and then I just announced I'm not up for this, screwed around for 18 months, got very unhappy. And when I came back, it's so much easier. When you really own it, it's like, oh, this isn't hard anymore. It's what I want to do. It's crazy. And my brain had matured a little bit. The male brain needs time. It needs time.
Yeah, no, there is sort of like, I don't want to be this 9-to-5 rube versus now I'm like, yeah, man, I kind of like it. I like getting up, going to the gym. I like going to bed early. I like it. And it's I think that's part of it is like, it has to be your own. So I think, who knows, in 20, 30 years, if the country looks wildly different, we might not be looking back at the 50s with such a bad taste as so much as we'd be like, yeah, you know what? We tried something else and it got really, really weird. And then, you just do the montage of like summer 2020. And our kids will look at that the same way we look at like the 70s. We go, yeah, it kind of that was a little crazy, huh? Got a little dark.
It does feel similar.
Yeah, it is similar.
It's really funny when Tommy's talking about the suicide in his life and how depressed he got and he started taking drugs. A lot of the people in that book that they talk about that lived in Laurel Canyon all came from that family history.
Suicide.
And their parents had suicide. Then they ended up taking a lot of LSD later.
Interesting.
Well, and then became a rock star.
It's the dropping out feeling. So now you're a biologist by training. And so am I. And I am mortified by the state of biological sciences these days. And I would call myself sort of a Brett Weinstein acolyte in the sense that he looks at the scientific method as abandoned, or like what people aren't even trained in it. And I know you got in trouble for talking to Robert Malone. Tell me about do you have any strong thoughts about those kinds of issues right now?
Yes or no. Yeah, I have a biology degree. And then just doing the interviews early on with Dr. Malone, I had them on before they went on Joe Rogan. And so like I had found them and I was like, oh, I was such an idiot that I thought that we would all have a rational discussion where I went, oh, well, YouTube's giving me these strikes. Well, I'll get these doctors on. And
it's really what Jay Bhattacharya told me the same thing. It's the mistake everybody rational made, which was, oh, I'm a scientist. We're going to have discourse like we always do. Let's get into this. And all of a sudden, like, what the F is going on here? Yeah.
I thought that I would get him on, and I was like, hey, well, I'll get on the guy with the patents, and then we'll instantly ban from YouTube, which then just radicalized me because, one, medicine's near and dear to me, but also that's really not something that should be glossed over. But ultimately, I'm not worried about it because it just is. And the best analogy I think I've kind of concluded after all these years is Chernobyl, and that you can have everyone in the KGB or the FSB saying that nothing's happening, and the news stations can say nothing's happening. But eventually, external sources like other countries start to go, why is there strontium-90 in the rain? Eventually, the physical reality does not give a shit how strong the KGB thinks it is. The atoms are just going to break apart. It's just the thing going. The winds aren't going to stop. The radio, you're in the Cold War. Guess what? Everybody's kind of looking for radiation. Eventually, the truth comes out. So with biology, as much as I do think that these interviews needed to be done, and I don't regret getting banned from YouTube and iTunes and Reddit and all of them, at the same time, I'm not too worried about it because, I mean, you can label it all day long. We barely can get a supercomputer to simulate a single protein folding. You can gloss over it and call up and down and left is right, and it doesn't matter. It just is. You can censor everyone that says gravity's 9.81 meters per second. You can censor everyone. You can kill them. Dog, it's not changing. You could jump off a building. You'll fall. That's kind of how we get it. It just is.
So you've said it's something I've said a little differently, is that reality eventually asserts itself. Reality is a way of coming through.
It does. That's the thing, though. It's not even asserting. It just is. Our bubbles.
Yeah.
We're standing in front of a tank in Tiananmen Square and going, you're going to stop. And the reality is the tank, and it doesn't even know you're there. That's how I look at it. So you're sure we've abandoned the scientific method? It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters in that what we're doing is madness, and it will hurt us and only us. This science does not care. It does. It's the tank just rolling through. So I'm not too concerned about it.
That's good. I look forward to the equivalent of the Chernobyl miniseries, that we have a COVID series that is equally as penetrating to what happens. We can all kind of come to terms with it. It was going, the other thing I've seen lately, you mentioned getting canceled on everything, is that I guess someone on Rogan was saying this, that as soon as they feel the need to cancel somebody's opinion, it's a psyop of some type. There's something wrong. There should be no active censoring or silencing of people in this country unless they're, for the moment yelling fire in a theater or something, something that is imminently going to hurt somebody. You might go, okay, stop for a second. But other than that, that's it. And I was thinking, how Putin kills his opponents. Western Europe and the United States puts them in prison. How is that different? It's silencing your opponents. We've sort of taken that on and don't realize we're doing the same thing that Putin does, just without a gun.
Well, they're idiots in that if you're going to do it, you have to go through. And by that, I mean, once you shoot at the king, you best not miss. Because if you do miss, they're going to hunt you down. They're going to hunt down your family. You can't mess this stuff up. So if they're going to start censoring, right, they're going to kind of take the veil off and, this is what we are. It's a Marxist government. We'll call it private companies, but everyone knows it's Department of Homeland Security, FBI, NSA, CIA. They're doing it. If you're going to do this and start censoring, well, obviously you have to start with the outliers. You're going to get an Alex Jones. You're going to attack the big people, a Joe Rogan, a Russell Brand, or whoever. And you're going to start censoring just down the line. But the thing is you can never stop. You've now started something to where you have to set up a dictatorship, and you have to eventually, you just walk it out over decades. This is what you have to do. Because if you don't, it might take a little while. It's taken a little while. 4 years ago, how strong was Rumble? How strong was a free Twitter? It wasn't. They've induced an immune response. Ironic. It's the most beautiful irony that through forced vaccination, they've actually induced a sociological immune response to now you have all these other platforms growing and blowing up, and all these shows getting stronger to where now 5 years ago somebody gets banned. Your average person went, well, maybe he shouldn't have said that about Sandy Hook. Now if somebody gets banned, like you said, the knee-jerk response is like psyop.
Yeah.
You now have a populace that is far more awakened to your processes, which means if you're going to start it, you have to go all the way through and set up the dictatorship. And they didn't. So now it's just, what doesn't kill you makes you strong. The muscle got destroyed, but now it's being repaired. So if you're going to go through with it, man, you got to have the balls to go through with it. And they don't.
Is there... I don't know what to do with that, but I'm glad they didn't.
I'm not saying it's right. No, thank God they didn't. But what I'm saying is you have to go through. If you're gonna walk into the bank and shoot the cameras and shoot the security guard, you've already committed murder. You got to rob the bank and leave the country. Because if you don't, I'm not saying you should. The whole thing is evil. But if you're going to, now you're just on the run. You didn't even get any money. Like, you're stupid. So that's what I mean. It's like, there's thank Christ, because this is where we live. But man, if you're gonna start, you gotta roll out the tank, and they didn't, which is hilarious.
What is your? You have such an interesting way of looking at these things, because I don't find it hilarious. I find it deeply disturbing.
It's hilarious.
Good on you.
It's hilarious in that it didn't work. What they're doing is pure evil, and what they wanted to do was eventually, if you set up a dictatorship, let's make no bones about it, results in tens of millions. I'm laughing because it's in hindsight now, but they didn't go through with it. You can call it hilarious. You can say thank God for His divine providence, which is true. But they didn't go through with it, and you have to scratch your head and wonder why. Did they not have the guts? Was there some quiet pushback from the national security apparatus? I don't know, but they didn't go through with it, which is actually a very good thing, because we have now survived it. You now have how common was First Amendment in everyday lexicon 5 years ago?
Oh my God! The fact that I have to worry about defending freedom is just like shocking to me. It's my age. That would be my life.
How absurd is that? How weird is it that we have to ask ourselves, well, do we trust the CDC? I mean, 5 years ago, I'd be like, dude, that's the CDC. Will you shut up? He's in a white coat. He's a doctor. Will you sit down?
Listen, I said that at the beginning of COVID. I kept the part that they took off of all my commentary was the part where I said, hey, just listen to Fauci and the CDC. I know these guys, they've been advising me my whole career. Yeah, they've advised my whole career that I can rely on what they're telling us. And man, that's what I got wrong. Wow, did I get that part wrong? And shocked, and I can't believe it.
But so my point is ideally it never would have happened. And no, funny is not the right word. But ideally, none of it would happen. Ideally, my life would just keep going, and my life was great. And I would say I wouldn't have lost a sibling to suicide. Ideally, but I did, and it almost cost my life, but it didn't. So now I am much stronger. I have a much greater appreciation for life, and I also use my show, and I talk to a lot of veterans who maybe, they're tough guys and talk about shooting people in the face, but they all get a little quiet when you talk about mental health. And then you can break and go, well, let me start by saying I lost a brother. You have these hard as rock guys who they open up a little bit and go, oh. And so my point is it didn't kill me. And so I am now, ideally it never would have happened if this wouldn't be a problem and I would be a doctor and whatever. But it happened. I'm now much stronger for it. So in the same sense, yes, this never would have happened, nor should it have happened. But we survived. Last summer was beautifully metaphoric. We survived the bullet going by our ear. That wasn't just a bullet. That was a Marxist dictatorship. We are now so much stronger for it that you have people who are just like, hey, I cut USAID. I don't care. Send the Marines to the border, whatever. You never would have had that Overton window shift without getting that close to death. So again, hilarious isn't the right word. Maybe that's just like a fear response of mine.
No, I don't dislike that you frame it that way. It makes you react. It makes one react.
Interesting.
To your point about things getting stronger, I've been bringing up for people lately. I heard this French woman who was Russian, been in France since the early 2000s, who was the executive director of Russian TV there. And they got acutely paranoid about her, and she was a Putin operative, and she's a Russian, she's a communist, she's infiltrating, blah, 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 blah. And she's written a book about it because it was such a horrible experience. And it was all nonsense. And she said, in Russia and the surrounding states, we do not believe the news. We have been inoculated by the Soviet system. This idea of fake news is matter of fact to us. So when the news says something, we know just go, whatever. And the Western Europe and the United States, we want to believe what the journalists are saying when in fact, the Soviets are actually better equipped to deal with propaganda than we are.
Yeah.
Former
Yes.
Soviets.
So you have to ask yourself, is it good? Well, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you a lot stronger and it makes you inoculated against it. It's an objectively good thing. But no, you don't want to learn that. I don't want to learn that lesson. It's not fun.
No.
I'd much rather not learn the lesson.
Yeah. Now, I'm guessing you have ideas about where we're going. So what do you sort of predict for, I mean, I'm using the term us, but how do you see things going forward? What are you worried about? What are you predicting, or can you?
I think the biggest thing is that people's willingness to accept radical change, and then that's not objectively good or bad. It's just a fact. People are a lot more willing to, I don't like going to if you go to the ER at 2 a.m. and your stomach's bleeding out, you're probably going, I don't care, whatever the doctor has to do. People are a lot more open to radical change. I don't know. I personally like it. I'm personally right-leaning, but let's just say objectively, I don't think without an election, I believe, got stolen, with a bioweapon coming out, and with 4 years of just, we can't give you a tent in North Carolina, but hey, here's $100 trillion to Ukraine. And you can't do any of those things. I think you have people that are now more willing to take radical steps. And I think radical steps are what needs to be taken, because you don't even have to go on every 250 years the empire. No, let's just objectively look at it. We're paying more in interest rates last year than the DOD budget ever was. For the first time ever, interest on the national debt superseded that of the DOD. So you're at a point where it's now a mathematical breaking point, which means that one of two things historically happens. The empire dissolves, another hegemon comes in, and that's a very brutal period over decades and centuries. Or the empire does some sort of internal collapse and restructuring, and then maybe goes on for another 250 years. I'm biased because I'm alive right now, and I don't really want to see the empire, where I also happen to live, go away. So I think that is what we're seeing, be it tariffs, be it reshoring, be it border, be it, telling NATO that they're going to pay whatever they're going to pay. I think that the average person is probably a lot more open to radical change. Now, again, that's not objectively good or bad. This could very well be the death knell. I have no idea. But if I just to make the most safe prediction, I would say radical change is now going to happen, and it's not just going to happen on some Twitter thread in 2012 saying Ron Paul is going to end the Fed. I think if somebody says end the Fed now, there's like a legitimate, you're like, yeah, they might do that. Trump might roll into Fort Knox with tanks. I have no idea.
Yeah,
Again, good or bad?
That's interesting. Yeah,
I don't know. A patient.
You're right. We have come to accept some of this stuff a little more readily, and kind of. Because it's, I think some people that are sort of in the accepting mode feel like it's so needed. There's something needed to happen. And so it's like, it's rolling the dice and it's scary. But so let's talk about some of it. Tariffs, you good on that?
I know biology. I know nothing about this. And I just don't want, it's the liberal talking about, he had a belt-fed pistol. It's like, that doesn't exist. I can't speak out of turn on tariffs because I don't know. I mean, I could say some regurgitated points, but it would be intellectually dishonest.
All right, fair enough. And then Adam and I were talking about DEI. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about that conversation and those policies.
DEI is fascinating because it's predicated upon the same bullshit that both sides agree is bullshit. A drug that comes off patent. Modafinil, armodafinil, insulin, it's off patent now, a statin or whatever, a beta blocker, it comes off patent. And you go, well, why is it so expensive? Well, they sold the patent. Or how come that cologne's so expensive? It's bottled on the same conveyor belt. Oh, well, one of them says Chanel and the other one just says gas station scent, whatever. Or, you look at a painting and you go, that looks god awful. And you go, well, this is actually, a Pollock. And all of a sudden you go, whoa, this is brilliant. And I'm willing to, and everyone agrees that if it costs more and it's a bottle of liquor, you go, well, you're buying your brand. Everyone agrees if it's a drug, you go, oh, well, it's on patent versus off patent. Everyone agrees when it's an art exhibit, you go, yeah, it's BS and it's probably money laundering. So we all agree that when the titles detach from reality, like Chernobyl, there is no leak. No, well, there is. We all agree that when the titles detach from what they represent, that it's a scam, it's dishonest at best and money laundering at worst. DEI to me is that if you're a good candidate for a law school, if you have a good podcast, go for it. You shouldn't look at, am I a white guy with blue eyes? Do I have purple hair and identify as a fox? None of that should matter. And it is interesting that we all agree when that happens elsewhere, drugs, bottles of liquor, modern art, that it's horseshit. Oh, the military industrial, it's a $40,000 screw. Well, Northrop Grumman can charge that for a screw. We all agree in every other aspect of life when this happens that it's nefarious. I think it's just a matter of time before that same logic gets applied to this. We're in the process of it. It'll take some time, but
I kind of hope that my sincerest wish and fervent hope, to quote a famous person, is that good will come of the excesses. That we'll be able to keep some of the good, something will be extracted from it. That's usually the way it is. Usually you look back and go, okay, that accomplished something. It was, big price, lots of excess, couldn't go on, but all right, we can at least feel good about that, whatever it might be. I've just been through enough historical moments in my life where things that just feel just awful, you just go, all right, well, at least we got that out of it.
Correct. And I think that's probably where we are right now is, again, in hindsight, you wish it didn't happen, but it did. So what can we gather from this? The slippery slope argument is real. It does get very crazy, it goes from this to, let me teach your kids about it. It gets odd. It gets really, just how, it's not 1995 anymore. We can't be the world police with the dream team and McDonald's and Michael Jordan. It's like, there's a cost to this. There's a legitimate cost. And when everything's awesome, you don't really care about another line item for another aircraft carrier. When you can't take care of people in East Palestine or in, Hurricane Helene, and you start going, well, why are we giving $100 million to Sierra Leone to build a railroad that they're not going to build? There is something good that comes out of it. We maybe should look at this. We maybe can't take care of everyone. I'd say that's something good.
I agree. I wish we could. We can't. Again, back to your original sort of frame. Reality asserts itself. Reality comes in. There's a physical. There is such a thing as economics. It does tend to. It is a thing, and humans are Homo economicus. That's how it works. Yeah. What's coming up? Go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you. If everyone's looking at, I don't know, an oncoming storm or tsunami, you can say reality is going to assert itself soon, guys. That tsunami is coming in. No, it's not a tsunami. That's hate speech. Eventually you go, well, listen, I'm gonna take care of myself, my loved ones. Come on, mom. Come on, my brother. I think that's a tsunami. We're gonna go to the high ground. I wish the best for the rest of you guys, and I do hope you come with me. But I'm also not gonna fight you on it. Godspeed. That's another part. Is reality will assert itself. So try, do your part. It's your moral obligation to speak up if you see something wrong, like the COVID vaccines and the doctors. But you also hit a point where 5 years later, I'm like, hey, God bless. My conscience is clean. Whatever's going to happen now. And that's kind of where I am now. I'm going to the high ground. I wish you all the best. Here's an inner tube. I got to go.
I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up. What's coming up on the podcast?
I don't know, man. Just, continually I make it all up as I go. I've done 1,720 episodes. I never go in with any notes. Wow. To anything. I just wake up and hit the gym, drink some coffee, and let the fear of God make me not have any dead air.
Do you have any thoughts? Last question is sort of, I think a lot these days about hysteria and delusion, because I feel like back to Robert Malone and his he was sort of first to bring up mass formation, or what he called mass formation psychosis. And I think that is very real thing, speaking of just things asserting themselves, just happening. And humans have this tendency to do this. Are you thinking about that at all? I'm constantly preoccupied with, like, I thought we'd finished with that in the 20th century. Turns out it's just a feature of the human experience.
It kind of seems like static electricity or something. It builds up. It doesn't come out of nowhere. If I walk along these wooden floors, I don't get shocked. I'm holding this fuzzy blanket. You're damn well sure I'm going to get shocked when I touch this thing. It doesn't come out of nowhere. It might look like it comes out of nowhere, but it doesn't. It builds up. I think what mass formation psychosis is it's a rising tension in the air. It's give me one night and not enough sleep. Give me 2 nights. Make the air conditioner go out. Make me stub my toe. Eventually, I think I'm a nice guy. Eventually, I'm going to cuss out a grandmother because it's just the wrong spot. I think that in history and in the future, mass formation psychosis is, I'll put it this way, I'll frame it more succinctly. Gavrilo Princip shot Archduke Franz Ferdinand and, set off World War I, and World War I caused World War II, and World War II led to the Cold War and to the space race. So you could say he was the most influential figure ever. Not really. Anyone would have done that. Any one person would have done that, and that would have set off everything. He just happens to be Gavrilo Princip, but it could have been Bob Smith. He didn't do anything profound. He pulled the trigger of a gun. Congratulations. But it was a spark. That one spark wasn't unique, but it was a spark, and there was a ton of gas, and hey, we happen to know the spark's name. I think mass formation psychosis, like Gavrilo Princip, it happened to be COVID. It happened to be George Floyd. It happened to be Trump's first term. Really, it's probably to come back to the median income's going down. Households are split in half. No one stays in marriage. People don't do fentanyl for fun. Opiates aren't new. There's a reason why opiates are destroying the Rust Belt. Well, what's the Rust Belt? Oh, we're used to be able to have a job and support your family. Oh, so all of these things happen. I think mass formation psychosis probably happens when everything hits a fever pitch. It's not that it's anything profound. It was a cough. It just broke the camel's back. It was Gavrilo Princip. He himself wasn't a unique character, but it did set off World War I and World War II and the Cold War. That's how I'd look at it. So there might be some logic to reshoring American jobs. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe when people are just too tired from the steel mill, they don't go crazy, I don't know, set up some dictatorship and start assassinating. You might need that. You might just need like a median income, be able to eat a hot dog and go fishing once a week with your son. I think that's probably what it is. Keep it down.
You have moved my thinking on that topic forward, and I thank you for that. However, I did not expect to be discussing Franz Ferdinand today during this podcast. So, but okay.
Hey, man,
and if you really want to get into the weeds on Franz Ferdinand, do you know that they were trying to blow him up and they failed?
Yeah.
And when he went back to the hospital to visit the people that were injured in the explosion, one of the Black Hand, which was the group that was trying to assassinate him, walked out of a sandwich store and saw Franz Ferdinand sitting there, and so he just shot him.
No,
and that's where it all started.
He thought he fucked up. He was like, I can't believe it. I didn't get the bomb. And he sits down. Yeah. There he goes by again. And it's just like you're like, there takes a gun, and it'd be like if Kennedy went under the overpass and then they came back again. You'd be like, are you kidding me?
That's true.
And then at a certain point you start going, did the universe want this to happen? This is kind of, so I don't know. Yeah, no.
Well, again, that's kind of your point. Yeah. That's kind of your point.
Is that there was valve.
There was other stuff brewing, and that's true. That's the case. So you have moved my thinking forward. I appreciate it. It is _ Tommy's Podcast on X. It is Tommy'sPodcast.com. I appreciate you being here, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me.
All right, you got it. Tommy Carrigan, everybody. All right, so we have coming up, remember I mentioned, I think at the outset of the show, a swatting victim. That is tomorrow, Sean Farash.
After my show.
After Susan's show.
Susan Pinsky, 11 to 1 p.m. Pacific.
There it is up there. Salty Cracker. Eastern. Coming back on there's Susan's. They're going to get into the it says the headline is Manson, but I think the reality is you're going to be talking about
why Sharon Tate was really killed.
Yeah, which is a lot. There's a lot. As everything with reality is a lot different than the myth than the headlines.
But we got Mama Cass's daughter coming on the show, and she was friends with Sharon Tate, Mama Cass. So, and it's funny because I didn't even think of her, but I was kind of talking about doing the show, and then she just randomly called me. So I think she's a great guest. All
right, Salty Cracker coming back, Jack Posobiec, Andrew Gruel, our chef friend, and there's a lot coming. Mark Robert, there's a lot coming up. Stay with us. I think that does it. Caleb, anything else for you? Tomorrow we're at 2:00.
No, very excited. And yes, I did go down this rabbit hole. Thank you, Susan. And it's wild to look into the history of the Manson stuff. It's like Manson is kind of like a footnote to all of the stuff that you're going to talk about tomorrow. It's the tiniest part of the story.
Right.
Everybody. He knew everybody.
He knows so many rock stars.
He was friends with everybody. He was literally like an up and coming musician, and he had all these girls, and he was.
It's
he
almost
just
like
ended
the
up,
more the more you moved away from societal norms, the more you were revered by this group.
Laurel Canyon. Everybody gravitated to Laurel Canyon, and that's where it all started. And he was like, for a minute, going to be an artist, and then he, I don't know, there's something behind the scenes that we don't know about Manson that I think has a connection to Laurel Canyon, and that's what I want to find out. And that's my job tomorrow.
And it sounds odd when Susan says, "Oh, he just wanted to be an artist." Like, no, that's what they did. They declared themselves, "I'm a poet, I'm a musician." Jim Morrison did that. They all did that, and some of them were okay at it, and some of them were not.
Yeah,
and still got elevated.
Very good. Their band was really bad. I found out listening to this book is that most of those bands started with studio musicians.
That's right.
And they just made up songs, and that's how it started with the Byrds and Morrison.
They were saying that the club visitation was way low because when these bands played live, they were shit.
They were terrible.
There was no studio musician to actually create the music. So there you go. All right. So that is tomorrow, 11 a.m.
They got better with time.
I don't know.
Into this big music scene and this money. There was money and then the anti-establishment, blah, blah, blah. And it was interesting. If you haven't read the book yet, you have to check it out.
You can hear it all.
We should probably have a picture of that book too.
Hear it all tomorrow. We will see you then, 11 o'clock for Susan, 2 o'clock for me. We'll see you then.
Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.